when you have a variety of individuals around you, whether you're the man in charge, the boss, whether you're the lead guy, whether you're just a support guy, a manager, like whatever it is, there's always a possibility for individuals who say that they are for you to really not be for you. I want us to realize that Judas was named a disciple. It's not like Judas came on at the last minute, like right before the Last Supper, to do what it is that he had to do. Like Jesus brought him on as a disciple. We have to assume that Jesus knew, what Judas's role would be ultimately. I just remember how upset I was. Like I was pissed. I was like, yo, you serve in this leadership position in this organization. We put all this trust in you. We don't micromanage. We allow you to kind of do your own thing and be a boss. And in hindsight, I guess that was one of the things that we lacked in not having oversight. It's just one of those things where it's like, man, how are we supposed to react as human beings? How are we supposed to respond to someone who betrays our trust? There has to be this expectation of betrayal. I think it's inevitable. I'm not saying that everyone is going to betray us. I'm not saying everyone will fall into these categories, but there are going to be those persons that do, and sometimes it's the persons that are closest to us. All right, what's up, everyone? Welcome to the new episode of the Myles High Podcast. This is Myles Munroe Jr. I am your host, and as always, the vision of this podcast is to entertain, educate, and elevate you miles high above your fears, your doubts, and any limitations that you may think exist, always knowing that those limitations only exist in your mind. All right? I hope everyone is doing good out there. Everyone is good. This is good vibes in the studio today. The wife is here. Baby, good?
I'm great.
You patronizing me?
Just a little
bit. That's how you go. Well, welcome again to this new episode. I wanted to so I was having this conversation with my wife actually a couple of weeks ago, and I guess this is where a lot of the ideas for my pods come from, right? Through conversation. And she and I were kind of talking about pop culture and what was going on at the time. You got one of the biggest rap beefs that had happened a couple of weeks ago, and throughout the beef there was like this accusation that there were moles in the two camps that were going back and forth, right, between Kendrick Lamar and Drake. And the idea of having someone in your crew that was, feeding information to another crew or a rival crew was a topic of conversation that Sharice and I had, and she was like, man, I guess she took it more so to say, it's crazy that Drake would have like moles in his crew or people in his crew who would be, giving information to the other side. And, same thing with Kendrick Lamar. And, my outlook on it was just, that should be something that's expected, right? I guess have that outlook. When you have a variety of individuals around you, whether you're the man in charge, the boss, whether you're the lead guy, whether you're just a support guy, a manager, like whatever it is, there's always a possibility for individuals who say that they are for you to really not be for you, right? And that's kind of what I wanted to talk about today, right? I wanted to talk about beyond betrayal. because when we think about like being betrayed, we think of it as like something that's a negative thing or a horrible experience or a bad experience, right? And it takes me back to Jesus himself. I think we've all heard the story of Judas, Judas the betrayer, the disciple that betrayed Jesus. And I think I want us to realize that Judas was named a disciple, right? So it's not like Judas came on, at the last minute, like right before the Last Supper, to do what it is that he had to do. Like Jesus brought him on as a disciple, and I think we have to assume that Jesus knew, what Judas's role would be ultimately for the life of their relationship, right? He knew the role that Judas had to serve, and I think that's the thought of him knowing like what Judas was going to do, but he still brought him into his inner circle, still had him, traveling around with him, still doing the amazing works that he was doing at the time, and Judas was right there, right? I think we can't ignore that. We can't ignore the fact that in every aspect of our lives, whether it's our personal life, our professional life, we're all going to have a Judas there. We're all going to have a Judas involved, right? There's always going to be those individuals who claim to be serving an overall purpose, a positive purpose, but they're either out for our demise, they're either out to get over on us, they're either out for selfish intents. And I think these are things that should be expected. And it's up to us to learn or to prepare how to deal with it. This reminds me of a story I told, many podcast episodes ago, right? This is about this guy that used to work along with our organization, our international organization. And this is when my dad was still alive, right? And we got privy to, we had done some audits of our books and realized that we had about almost $200,000 that went missing, wasn't accounted for, was supposed to have came in and been deposited to the business accounts, but realized that those funds just never hit the accounts and couldn't understand why or couldn't understand what happened. And through the audit, through the process of the audit, we realized that our business manager at the time had stolen the money pretty much. And I remember, so, this was something where I had now started working very closely with my dad. And this guy had been around before I had came on. So he was around, for many years, maybe about 10, maybe even 15, 20 years before I even started working with my dad. I knew of him, didn't really know him that well. He didn't live in the Bahamas. So I didn't really have that much contact with him, that I didn't have that much communication with him. But I knew of him, right? I knew of him, and my dad loved him and loved working with him, and would say all these great things about him. So didn't really think twice about him being a part of the organization. But when we realized that this guy had stolen these funds, I just remember how upset I was. Like, I was pissed. I was like, yo, you serve in this leadership position in this organization. We put all this trust in you. We don't micromanage. We allow you to kind of do your own thing and be a boss. And in hindsight, I guess that was one of the things that we lacked in not having oversight in certain positions. But nonetheless, he was someone that was trusted, and he betrayed that trust. And I remember my reaction and my response was to just get upset, and I was pissed. And I just remember my dad just being super calm. Like, he didn't get upset, he didn't raise his voice, didn't show any negative vibes, right? No negative responses, didn't have any negative energy. And I was so amazed at that, right? I was like, yo, how are you not upset? And I guess his outlook on it was from the perspective of the history of the relationship, right? this guy has been working with me before I, had the name that I have today, before I had the recognition that I have today. He was sacrificing his time and his energy and, his efforts with his family to work with me, these years in the past. And I never was able to pay him probably what he was worth at the time. And, we have been building together all of these years. And, now I'm to the point where, business is good. We're doing well. And this guy made this mistake, and he just looked at it as a mistake. We set up a meeting with the guy. We all came in, had a meeting, showed him what we discovered. And literally all my dad wanted was him to admit what he did and to apologize. And, for me, I thought like, man, you giving him an easy way out, right? And, surprisingly to me, this guy couldn't even admit what he did. Like he denied it, never took accountability for it. And it was crazy to me. And like even through all of that, my dad was still willing to, help this guy and work with him and continue to befriend him, right? Continue to want to mentor him. And I for some reason, that situation always stands out to me. I'm always reflecting on that situation through everything that I go to, right? Where, there are persons in my life who I have befriended or I have, a working relationship with or whatever it is, and something happens and, they don't do what is expected, or they do something that is unexpected. And it's just one of those things where it's like, man, how are we supposed to react as human beings? How are we supposed to respond to someone who betrays our trust? And I was thinking about it, and I realized that, and one of the things my dad and I spoke about was that the guy that was working with us. Things change when expectations are set in place, right? So, you have to imagine like this guy started working with my dad and probably had the expectation of, man, Dr. Munroe is such an influential person, such an impactful person. He's been doing all of these things and seems to be on his way to, just gaining some type of celebrity or some type of like whatever it is he was thinking, all those years ago, 20 years ago, whatever it was. But reality hits, and I guess it didn't happen as fast as it probably should have, and he was probably reflecting on, man, the amount of time and energy and maybe even money of my own that I had to invest in keeping things running, because again, this was one of our international offices, and we had put him in charge of that particular office. So fast forward a few years, and things are doing much better, and maybe his expectations of being able to make a living, a good living for himself that he wasn't able to make, and he saw an opportunity to reap what he felt should have been his, for whatever reasons. I'm just speculating at this point as to why things happen the way they happen. But my point here is that the expectation of individuals around us causes, or is the root cause on in most times for betrayal, right? Because people, if you're the leader of an organization, and people believe in you and they think that you're going to be able to provide certain things for them, whether that's financial support, whether that's recognition, whether that's opportunities, whatever it is. And those expectations that they have aren't met. There's some envy, some jealousy, there's these negative thoughts that creep in, and it causes people to, do things a bit differently, do things that we don't expect, do things that we didn't discuss, and that's where betrayal creeps in, right? Because betrayal happens for a number of reasons, right? It's infidelity, in the situation of like a romance. It could happen in relationships, friendships, relationships, acquaintances, within amongst family members. It could happen in professional relationships. These things happen, and I think the expectation of these things occurring is what we should put to the forefront of our minds, right? It's like opening a business, right? If we open a business and we're selling products or we're selling a service and we hire employees, right? There has to be an expectation that employees are either going to steal from the business with certain opportunities that they get, or they're not going to live up to the expectations of what the job requires, what their position requires. And they're going to steal time, right? They're going to not give time to make the money that time should have been providing for. So there are these variables that we have to account for when we're thinking about our personal lives, our professional lives, in all aspects of these areas of our lives, right? The individuals that we deal with, the people that we bring into our lives, people that we bring into the business. There has to be this expectation of betrayal. I think it's inevitable. Now, I'm not saying that everyone is going to betray us. I'm not saying everyone will fall into these categories, but there are going to be those persons that do, and sometimes it's the persons that are closest to us, right?
I disagree.
Go ahead.
I don't think that there should be an expectation of betrayal, or in all situations there is betrayal.
When I say expectation, I'm sorry, I shouldn't say expectation. You should prepare for it, right? So similar to like when we start in a business, right? I don't think you expect people to steal, but you have to account for it, right? You have to make preparations for it. So there has to be a item line on your balance sheet for pilferage, right? Any smart businessman would know that you have to account for that aspect of a possibility in a business. And I think it's the same preparation we should have in life. And it's just like an insurance, right? You take out life insurance, health insurance, automobile insurance. You don't expect to have any issues. You don't expect to run into any problems. But if something happens, you're prepared for it, right? And you're insured to the point where you should be able to cover whatever losses you experience.
So we're just talking about in a sense of money.
No, I'm just anything. Why we pointing specific?
Because you just said, pilferages but I feel like we probably should expect jealousy and different stuff like that.
But jealousy leads to like different things. It leads to people.
I think it leads to that because there's sometimes not clear communication. Whereas, say you start a business with someone, and just say in the instance of a good example is the podcast I Am Athlete, where they went into a business. Clearly the lines were blurred as to who owned what or percentages or whatever, and it led to a split. I think if it was proper communication from the beginning, that would not, have happened, because all parties know what's on the line. All parties know this is A, B, and C, not you have to think or you have to assume. So I think that's where it is. We don't communicate properly, or we are scared to communicate because this person is my friend. I don't know how they're going to take it. And some people just don't know how to be an adult, like address the situation so it can be clear cut.
I think that's one aspect of it, right? Communication, or the lack thereof. But I think we also have to account for like it not being our fault, right? It's not like my dad it wasn't his fault that the gentleman stole from him. It wasn't Jesus's fault that Judas decided to betray him, right? It's just it is what it is, right? It's things that happen in life, things that we don't expect, but we could be prepared for.
No, I know, but I'm saying that doesn't happen in all instances.
Again, I'm not saying that it's going to be it's going to be in a reality or something that is realized in all of our lives. Like we may go through our lives and we don't experience, someone that betrays us or experience that type of act, right? That betrayal act, whether it's a family member, friend, loved one, a business partner, whatever it is. We not all of us are going to experience that, but that doesn't mean that there isn't a possibility that it could happen. And I'm just talking from the perspective of like the conversation that we had, right? Because, if you're a celebrity, right? A megastar, and you're doing super well, and you have to have all of these individuals around you. Like I'll give you another example, right? So there are individuals who, and this has happened quite a number of times, right? You have individuals who get this level of success, whether it's an athlete, whether it's a musician, an artist. They get to a level of success where they're doing very well for themselves, right? And they hire these business managers and these accountants to work along with them to help them manage their funds. They give these people so much access, right, and so much responsibility when it comes to their lives and their funds, right?
Well, I think that is the first problem. Like I feel like.
Yeah, but you have to. I mean, it's easy to look from the outside in and say, oh, you got to expect something like that to happen. But if someone is recommending someone to you, right, this is your friend, someone that you hold high you hold in high regard, and you respect them, and they recommend someone to you as a business partner or as a manager or as an accountant or whatever, and you'll say, okay, cool, like this person seems well. Like it's like my dad introducing me to someone, his lawyer or his accountant or whoever, and I taking this person on. And this person has the relationship with my dad, not necessarily me, right? So the way that they treat me may not be the way that they treat my dad, but I'm thinking it's going to be the same because of the connection. And that may turn into them doing something that, was unexpected, whether it's, stealing from me or not paying certain expenses, which can become an issue for me, right? Because like what I was referring to, like these athletes, these artists, these celebrities who are making these funds, and they have these people who are now contracted or on staff to take care of certain things, and they don't, right? And then they get caught with IRS liens, right? They get caught with some type of criminal accusations of money laundering and all these things that they had no control over, because they had given that control to someone else that they had trusted, someone else that they held in high regard and didn't think that, they would be doing the things that they're doing. And there are countless stories of these type of things happening, right? And again, you're right in the sense of you got to be the smart person in that situation, right? You have to know the power of the authority that you give to these different individuals and what you keep, right? Should you allow someone to be able to sign for you on your accounts? Should you allow someone to be able to do business without your knowing, without your signatures, without your approvals? These are just things that, happen on a day-to-day basis. And I'm just saying that preparation is key.
I agree, but I think many times too, we like to blame other people for our shortcomings or our misfortunes, when a lot of times it's not us doing the due diligence. Because another perfect example is Show Yatani. Ain't no way someone could be able to spend how much $1 million from my account and I don't know about it.
I think that's very easy to happen.
It is not for you.
I think it's very easy to happen.
Not for you.
But that's because I am super diligent in that aspect. And,
exactly, my point. It ends with the individual. If you're not doing your due diligence, then that's a you problem.
But then if you could come around someone who knows your habits, right? Who knows how you review things and what you don't review, and they discover ways that they can get over on you. It's just some things like you won't expect. I'm sure you have been in situations where you've had friends, family members, acquaintances, like business colleagues who didn't have your best interests at hand in every aspect.
Of course, but then it boils down to it being a me issue, because I saw things that I should have nipped in the bud, or I saw things that I just let slide. There were red flags, but I didn't address it.
Yeah, but I think sometimes even in situations of betrayal, the betrayal happens for us. Mm-hmm. As negative as that situation may be, there's a lesson in it for
Agreed.
us, right? Even if we have to go through, like, those persons who I was referring to, who they put their trust in, like these business managers and accountants who like steal money. Like, there's this one situation where this gentleman had his accountant, right, his tax accountant, who was supposed to be paying taxes for him, right? And he just allowed him to control all of that. And, for maybe, I think it was like 6 or 7 years, no taxes were being paid. And then he received a letter from the IRS saying, hey, you didn't pay these taxes. And, the IRS don't care who was supposed to pay it and didn't pay it. They say, this is what you are supposed to pay. You're supposed to be responsible for this. So we fine you, we hold you accountable for not making these payments. So you have to pay the consequences, right? And these people had to serve jail time. And it's like, man, it's something that isn't my fault, right? I totally trusted someone to do the job that I entrusted them to do. They didn't do it, but they didn't receive, the brunt of the punishment. I did. And I think that's just a lesson in and of itself to say, man, you're right. I have to hold myself accountable. I have to be accountable for what I'm responsible for. But there are times when we just don't, right? And we have to go through that process of learning that lesson. And, I'm just saying that we can't, it'll be immature of us, right? Or it wouldn't be smart of us to go through life thinking that we won't go through an experience where someone betrays us or someone betrays our trust. Like, I think that's a part of growth. That's a part of life. And, it always takes me back to Proverbs 3:5-6. I think that's one of the key verses that I'm always reminding myself of, right? And, it says, trust in the Lord with all your heart. Lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he will direct your path. And I think to that extent, we have to be of the belief that we're not going to know everything. Like, I'm not going to know what the individuals around me are going to do, right? My focus is on God, right? And allowing him to guide me through all of these peaks and valleys, all of these paths that I'm traveling on, all of these things that I'm going through in my life, just keeping my focus on him, not really worrying about the individuals themselves, right? But trusting that, within every situation, God is going to have our backs and he's going to guide us through the good, the bad, the ugly, like whatever it is. Like, we have to focus on him. And when we talk about like going through these experiences of betrayal or the like, I think it's good for us to like experience the emotions. Again, my dad and I had this conversation, and this one particular situation like always stood out to me because it was a lot of money, right? And like, my dad just didn't, like, when I tell you he just didn't care, I guess didn't care is not accurate. It wasn't like that big of a deal. Like, he knew the seriousness of it. He knew the importance of the situation, but he didn't want to criticize. He didn't want to press charges. He didn't want to like do anything negative to negatively affect this individual, even though he would have deserved it, right? And the same thing with Jesus and Judas, right? I think Jesus knew that Judas serves a purpose. Like, if Judas didn't do this, then the reason that I was brought to this earth, may not be fulfilled, right? Everyone has a role that they play, even the Judases in our lives. Mm-hmm. Everyone plays a role, whether it's supposed to teach us a lesson, whether it's supposed to get us into a process to develop us as an individual. Like, there's a role that is being played, right? And just like how there's a person who plays the role of mentor, there's a person who plays a role of father, there's a person who plays a role of source, there's a person who plays a role of comforter. Like, all of these individuals plays roles throughout the development of our lives. Like, there's persons who play the roles of Judas, who plays the roles of the betrayal, because we have to go through these different things, right? And you could think of different experiences that you have, like all of us in this room, all of us that we experience, whether we're on the job and the negative things that we go through, the persons who we think have our best interests at heart, but they, behind our backs, they're talking negative towards us and portraying us in a negative light in order to affect us on the job, right? Because they may want to be in the position that we're in. And again, these are things that we have to accept. We should accept, right? Once they happen, go through the motions. Be shocked, right? Be in disbelief. Be angry. Be sad. Go through these emotions, because I think when we suppress these emotions, it could affect us more, right? So accept what's happening. Just understand that, man, this is a part of a bigger process, a bigger picture. And like I say, just being prepared is one of the most important principles that I can always speak to in every aspect of our lives. Be prepared for the good things. Be prepared for the bad things. Be prepared for the unexpected events to occur. Preparation is key. I can't speak to that enough. And you can't prepare for everything, but I think mentally going through the process of, man, this is a possibility. It's a possibility that these things can happen. What can I do to prepare myself, or how could I prepare myself to react or respond, if these situations happen? Yeah, and then, once you go through the process, another thing I think I learned from the situation with my dad was forgiveness. Like, my dad forgave this gentleman almost instantly, to be honest. I was just weirded out about it. Like, bro, how could you even speak to this guy, at this point? But he truly forgave him. And it was a lesson that I learned, and something that I try to apply, right? I try not to get overly emotional. I try not to get, overly upset in different situations. It's a work in progress for me, I'll admit. But it's something that I am intentional about, because I know that, regardless of the situation, there's a bigger lesson in it for me than it is for anyone else. And that's why we should forgive. Like, forgive in the sense of, man, thank you for, and this is going to sound crazy, right? But thank you for putting me through this situation, because it's going to teach me something that I need to learn, or put me through a process that I need to go through. But forgive, man. Like, accept the situation, the shock of it, the disbelief of it, the anger in it, the sadness in it, and choose to forgive. Choose to understand that, we're all at different points in our lives. We all have different expectations from ourselves, different expectations from persons around us. But I think we need to kind of flip that and just be prepared, right? Be prepared for any and everything that could possibly happen. Because when it happens, it won't be that big of a shock to us, right? It won't be to the point where we don't know how to respond or when to respond. And just having that mindset of, it is a possibility that it can happen to me as well. All right. So now this is the point where I leave with you a milestone. Today's milestone is simply this: when you learn how to sit at the table with your Judas, you'll understand the love of Christ. Pretty deep, pretty crazy to even think about sometimes, right? Sitting at the table with the person that has done you the most wrong. And forgiving them. It's something that we have to do as individuals, something we have to accept.
Do we have to? That's in the Bible?
We absolutely do.
Did he say you could forgive?
The Bible says to forgive 7.
You could forgive, but I have to have no meals with them.
Then have you really forgiven them?
Yeah, I feel like I've forgiven people.
See that high pitch? Yeah,
I could forgive you, and there are people who have done me wrong that I've forgiven. I've seen them, but I would never
I mean, you haven't forgiven them.
No. I have forgiven you, but I ain't trying to hang with you. I ain't trying to no. I could say good afternoon, good evening, and that's it. And I don't need to have no conversation with you. I don't need to know anything about you. I mean, that's forgiveness.
I'm working on you. We're gonna get you past that.
Work on yourself.
I don't hold any resentment to anyone. I try to live by this. I try to be able to sit at the table with my Judases, so that I can know the love of Christ. Because that's hard, right? Forgiveness is hard. Let's just be honest. It's hard to forgive. It's hard to love someone that has wronged us, right? But I think it's the highest level of maturity. Like, when you get to that point, when you could love someone who has wronged you, you've reached another level. like I remember, there's a lady in our church who experienced a robbery, right? Someone came into her yard and robbed her, and they shot her.
Yeah.
Right? And, she had to go to the hospital. She didn't die. She made it through. But they caught the guys who was created the robbery. And I think, if I can remember correctly, either she wanted to meet them or talk with them or whatever, had a little conference with them and forgave them, like literally forgave them, like, and she isn't like a young lady, right? She isn't old either. She isn't like super old, but she is, she's up there, right? And like to the point where you look, it's that type of situation where you'd be like, bro, how you doing this to this, like, she don't bother no one, like, this a really strong lady. Her name is Judy Blair. Miss Blair, that situation, when I learned how everything played out, I was like, man, I asked myself, man, would I be able to do that? Would I be able to, like, look at someone that would have done something like that to me and be like, yeah, I forgive you. Like, don't worry about it. Let's not think about it.
I mean, I think, to be honest, there's levels, like, because there are some situations I feel I would be able to forgive. But, like, if someone's in your personal circle, like, you are BFFs and they know your deepest, your darkest secrets, insecurities, and then they take that and do something with that, or, like, whatever. I feel like a situation like that is harder to forgive someone than someone that you don't know. So I feel like there's levels,
There's absolutely, but that doesn't mean that the forgiveness shouldn't take place.
No, the forgiveness should take place, but ain't no sitting at no table having no tea together.
I'm working on it, guys. I'm working on it. But the point is, when you learn how to sit at the table of your Judas, only then will you understand the love of Christ. And I think about, again, my dad in that situation. I think about Jesus and Judas specifically. And all of these situations that we see and hear about, in society. Internalize that, if we internalize that, or we should try to internalize that. And again, prepare ourselves for these type of situations and ask yourself, man, if I go through that, would I be able to forgive? Would I be able to express and respond with the love of Christ? Because that's what we should do. I'll work on my wife. We'll get her to that point one of these days.
One day.
No, but that's what I wanted to discuss. It just came from this conversation again that Sharice and I was having about just the situation of people within our inner circles betraying us, right? Doing something that we don't like, that hurts us or could possibly hurt us and hurt our loved ones. How do we respond to those situations? How do we prepare for those? Should we be prepared for those? And I'm of the belief that we should be, because, I think we need to look beyond the betrayal, right? And get to the point where we see the silver lining, right? We learn the lesson from that situation, and, it makes us a better person in the long run. All right. Well, that brings us to the end of this episode. I trust this was a good one for you. I trust you learned something. Because, as always, the vision and goal of this podcast is to entertain, educate, and elevate you miles high above your fears, your doubts, and any limitations that you may think exist. Always knowing that those limitations only exist in your mind. All right, until next time, you guys stay blessed.